My name is Chris Bennett. I've organized an art project to commemorate Lee Gobble, and in doing so I've asked various people who are affiliated with Fairfield. Some people I've known all my life, other people have come about midway and so on, to help with this project in various capacities. There are 5 of us all together. I'm doing the overall design, then someone else, Ken Rowe, is helping with some of the modeling of the portrait. Werner Elmker is documenting. Mark Shafer is making drawings for the enhancement of the detail after the sculpture has been built, and Harri Aalto is facilitating that detail with tile.
My name is Harri Aalto. I'm a resident of Fairfield. I've lived here many years. I started the company Creative Edge, which specializes in architectural stonework, and some of which you can see around the town.
My name is Mark Shafer. I'm I think, 6th generation resident of this county. I'm the guy that chased Chris Bennett to the parking lot after a display at the Art Association back many years ago and asked him if he would like to do a sculpture for the Art Association. And that resulted in Coop Friend in the Central Park. My part in this project is to celebrate the life and eccentricities of Lee Gobble with a series of 16 tiles. I'm doing acrylic paintings that will be transferred to ceramic tiles and fired. And it's turning out to be a lot of fun.
Okay. My name is Ken Rowe. I'm a former resident of Fairfield. I was born and raised here. I'm a sculptor, and one of my big influences was Chris Bennett. I remember vividly being in 6th grade and going to an event where I believe it was the beginning of the William Coop project. But yes, I've sculpted variously here and there, but my part of the project is I'm sculpting the head and the hands of Lee Gobble.
And my name is Werner Elmker. I'm from Denmark. I've been living in Fairfield for 30 years now and been admiring Chris Bennett's sculptures and taking many photos of his sculptures in town. So I was very delighted when I was asked to document this project of creating the Lee Gobble sculpture, and I'm documenting with photo and video.
I'm Susan Kessel, Fairfield Art Association Volunteer Director and President. We're very excited to be doing this project of Lee Gobble. I saw him when he was 100 years old and talked to him about this project, and I remember him just smiling and not saying a word, but just smiling. So I'm very excited that we have all 5 very talented artists to participate in this joint effort of creating this life-size bronze sculpture of Lee T. Gobble II.
My part in this project is to design a series of 16 tiles that are roughly shaped like neckties that will fan out around the base of the sculpture and pay tribute to Lee Gobble's affinity for sartorial splendor. He was a clothes horse and had lots and lots of neckties. So basically these are neckties that fan out like a turkey tail. One of the things that was difficult for me was to follow Chris's advice not to get too detailed, because the ideas I had in my mind have lots of detail. And I talked to Harri about this, and we decided that a certain size brush would maintain that broad stroke and still allow me to get the kind of detail I wanted. So this picture here of Bill LaRue, that face and the letter sweater are pretty much what the final product will look like. I included Bill in the composition because he was like the town mascot. He had the bicycle with the steering wheel, smoked cigars, wore 3 watches, saddle shoes, a paper route, lived at the Fairfield Hotel. I mean, he was just like the quintessential town character. And Lee Gobble took full advantage of Bill's kind of ordinary spirit. And the one prank that stands in my mind was he gave Bill a violin case full of beer and had him show up at some fancy party, just to spice things up a little bit. I know I was at Heather Hill's wedding, and Lee came in late, of course, and he had a little notebook, and he was checking off to see who was there. And he made a kind of obvious display of that fact. And he was always one to gather, the center of attention. So anyway, Harri, am I fulfilling
Absolutely.
your criteria?
Yeah, these are very beautiful. I told them also to not put too much detail because I was afraid it might get lost in the translation. So my relatively minor role will be, you'll see a line going around here like this, to cut these shapes out of all these artworks and then reproduce them into porcelain. The challenge with outdoor color work is it has to last a long time. And so porcelain's the only way to go. So I hope to capture all the detail that has been put on these paintings in porcelain and then install them in such a way that they stay there forever in one piece.
Lee Gobble always fascinated me when I was a kid. He represented sophistication and bullheaded orneriness, which were qualities I wished to emulate, but could not get away with at home. So he was kind of a vicarious alter ego, I guess. Anyway, my mother, toward the end of her life, mentioned that Lee was she always thought of him as one of my mentors. And I thought, well, that was the stamp of approval. I didn't feel like I had maybe 30 years prior to that. Anyway, one thing that Gobble and I share in common are roots in the county. Both our families came to this county in the 1850s. And I don't know, Lee was still alive, but he was inducted into the Jefferson County Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame, I guess the Fairfield Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame, and I got to do his portrait. So I'll be referencing the portrait, the print of it behind me here and there. But one of the things I did in the portrait was took landmarks that were prominent in the history of his family. And one of the first landmark was the old Gobble store at Abington. And this is obviously still kind of sketchy. And I don't know if you can make it out or not, but the turkey feather now at the bottom spells 1853 in Roman numerals, and I'm rather proud of that fact. The entire turkey tail, or the tail, was going to be entirely made of turkey feathers in my mind originally, and it would entail shadow images created by the stripes and the feathers, but that didn't quite work out. It was way too hard, and I finally just gave up on it, and then it kind of worked its way back in. When Chris had come to look at the sketches before there was any color in them, he reminded me of the fact that I wasn't following through on my original concept. And dialoguing with him, I got the idea of putting shadow stripes in the background to pick up on the stripes and the random feathers I have scattered throughout the composition. I've mentioned Lee Gobble's playful nature. He liked practical jokes, and here again, Bill LaRue is one of the players in Lee's bag of tricks. One story that Lee told me that always, no, Scott Jordan told me. This would have been in 1995. Scott and Lee had been childhood friends. They both spent time in Paris together during the war, had lunch with Coco Chanel. Scott said that she turned to her assistant and took a drag on her cigarette and said, So, why am I having lunch with these GIs? And Gobble said, according to Scott, well, Madame Chanel, or Mademoiselle Chanel, whatever she was, I'm one of the reasons you're still in business. He'd worked up this little perfume kind of thing with the enlisted men and the officers, and he was selling Chanel No. 5 to all the soldiers, and they were sending this stuff back to their mothers and sweethearts back in the States. So Lee was always an entrepreneur and would take advantage of whatever situation presented itself. Anyway, I wanted to get Bill LaRue in there because when he died in the late 80s, I thought, there should be a statue of Bill LaRue. And this sort of fills in that gap. Now, if you guys would hold up these two together. Yeah. So what I've tried to do is have each tile be a distinct composition, but have them referencing other tiles next to them. So what I did with the bandstand is I've got it in 3, maybe almost 4 sections. The sections don't quite match up, so it's a little bit cubist, kind of patchworky. And I did that on purpose because Harri had told me that sometimes cutting the tiles is somewhat imprecise, and so I had to be willing to lose a little smidge on an edge or two. And so that's why I painted outside the lines. So we've got some give and take. And it also, I think, it adds to the playful quality of the composition. And in this tile, I've done an eye for the hawk eyes, and then this circle you probably can't see by my finger is going to be a Parsons College Wildcat homecoming pin. And I might get a silhouette of Barhite Chapel in there as well. The chapel was one of the items on the Gobble portrait that I did for the entrepreneurs. Now, if you'd hold up those 2 sections.
These two?
Yeah. Well, let's just do that one. And I've made these random, almost full-size feathers, and these don't spell anything yet. Something might come to me, I don't know. But I've done kind of a topsy-turvy thing so that even when you're looking at the composition from the back of the statue, major parts of it will be right side up to the viewer. And right here is the Gobble store will be right in this section. And then the drugstore that was next door, that's such a great building. So I did a tighter close-up of it upside down, and the zigzag fish scaling on the tower roof will pick up the stripes and the feathers. So I've tried to interrelate things like that as much as possible. Okay. And then the next one, this celebrates Lee's affinity for golf. What was it? He joked that nobody would play golf with him when he was younger because he was too good. And then as he got older, nobody would play golf because he wasn't any good at all. So anyway, he lived right on the golf course. And I think golf balls went through his picture window a few times. But we've got the golf ball and the tee. And then this is another kind of element I've tried to do is where I'll take the shaft of the golf club and it morphs into the column on one of the storefronts on the north side of the square. And Lee actually owned those 2 buildings at one time and had turned them into apartments for Parsons College kids. It's where Cafe Paradiso is now. And at the Carnegie Museum, on our little stage, we have this really nice, heavy 1880s railing, oak railing. That came from the mezzanine of the J.E. Roth building, the second store in, that was taken out when they made the building into apartments. And Lee had that railing in his garage to keep his car from ramming the piles of antiques that he had as overflow in the garage. Oh, and his license plate, his Le Turkey vanity plate, and that particular section, that's done. That's the kind of crispness of color and graphic quality that I hope the entire painting will have once all the color is laid in. And then if you hold those next three up. So Ken, this isn't anything near and dear to your heart, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
So Gobble this is for the 1989 Centennial Parade. Was that the Sesquicentennial?
Sesquicentennial.
Something like that,
Yeah.
one of those. Anyway, he asked me if I had any ideas about how to decorate his golf cart. Well, I didn't, and it was obvious. So, unbeknownst to me, he called Kenny Rowe, and they came up with this turkey golf cart thing. And Ken, you threw it together in his garage?
Yeah, in his driveway.
Okay.
The night before, and actually, no, I remember getting it. The commission was I think I was working at the Fairfield line at the time, and I can't remember if I was summoned to yeah, to the museum or what, but I felt like it was a meeting between you and Chris, and that he said, hey, there's this possibility, Lee Gobble asked me to do this thing, I can't do it, and how about you? And so
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, so
I thought he dropped me like a hot potato because I didn't have any ideas.
no, the way I call it, I think that it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for whatever reason, like you were busy or I don't know, but either way,
All right.
I took on the project, and yeah, it was.
Did you get paid?
Oh yes. So actually, with that, so I said I got there. I think I started about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And finished about 6 a.m. The final worked all night, cardboard, and just got spray paint and a lot of duct tape. But I was pleased with it. But yes, and when I was finished, he asked me how much I wanted for this. I had not even gave it a thought. I thought this was a great, fun project. I was in college. I was just having a good time. It's like, I don't know, $50. I can't remember the exact price, but I said like, I don't know, $50. And he was sitting at his desk, and he looks up at me.
Did it kill him?
This look, and doubles the price. And,
Oh, wow.
And
That's a real coup.
yeah. So it was like, just, it made me feel more valued
Neat.
as an artist, as a person. So.
Neat.
You could have put another zero on the end of the 5-0.
I know, I was like, I obviously didn't ask for enough.
So you hold that up again. So I took a little poetic license, and I put one of those big foam rubber #1 fan pointing hand things on him, because his actual size hand didn't show up. But he's pointing upward to the courthouse steeple, and it's appropriate that the courthouse is right behind us outside the Civic Center here. And Lee, of course, was instrumental in raising funds to get the courthouse steeple reconstituted. And I used Kenny's turkey float or golf cart. I used it in the portrait. Lee is standing by the mantle in his front room, and the mantle is real elaborate that he salvaged from somewhere. It's got this little bronze medallion of cupids and Greek goddesses. So I replaced that with a bronze medallion of him in his turkey golf cart. So the golf cart made its initial appearance in a centennial parade, and now will figure in 2 different paintings. And Kenny, being a former student, grade school, Lincoln Elementary, and he was a kid, you were like in 5th grade?
Yes.
6th grade maybe. One of those.
I was in one of those.
Anyway, it was during the bicentennial in 1976, and I was in charge of the big foyer display. We took turns mounting at the elementary art show. So I decided to make the Fairfield Square, and I assigned different groupings of buildings to different kids. Kenny was on the courthouse committee, and much to my horror, they turned the courthouse into Animal House and made Snoopy with the clock hands on the clock on the tower, and there were all kinds of things hanging out the windows.
King Kong is on there.
King Kong, yeah. So anyway, just having that as a background is, I think, in the spirit of Lee Gobble. Mr. Fairfield.
When I developed this concept, the Art Association asked me to ask other artists to be involved, especially artists that were integral to Fairfield. I asked Ken Rowe to make the head and the hands. I made a small 24-inch model at first, had a mold made on it, then a foam copy, and sent that off to be enlarged in foam. And it came back as a life-size figure with head and hands. And I sent the hands and the head, which were in foam, I sent it to Ken Rowe in Alabama, and he's been working on it since. The trick is making sure that that head fits proportionally and the hands fit proportionally to the new figure. And today he came up from Alabama yesterday, and today we're going to fit that head and hands on the sculpture piece itself and talk about it. So Ken, what do you have for me?
All right, well, I have a head and two hands. The right hands, yeah, that would be the, okay. All right,
Here, hold it up there.
yes.
Look a little bit.
I do have a head. You may have the head, yes. Again, it's